Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to your Friday edition of Wasatch Weekend. Can you believe that we are 3 days into May already? I'm ready for those spring-like conditions to make their way out. We saw a bunch of April showers. Now I'm ready for those May flowers. I'm your host today, Maddie Evans, and we've got a great show in store for you. Not only are we going to give you some great information on what you could get out there and participate in this weekend and what you could look forward to become more empathetic next weekend, but we're also going to introduce you to a great book called Suits and Skirts and what it's like to be a woman in the corporate business world. Now, of course, we're going to take a look at that local weather forecast and bring you some more information on what you can expect for the weather this weekend. Let's take a look. If you're looking to get out there and do something incredible this weekend, well, the Park City Film Series is bringing in a movie that you're not going to want to miss, and I'm joined by Katie Wang, who's going to give us some more information. Good morning, Katie.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Last weekend you had Dune. How was the turnout?
It was great, and people loved it. So many people, as you might expect, had seen the original version, David Lynch, and then just to see Denis Villeneuve's kind of reimagining of the story, because he didn't stay as close to the storyline as the original Dune film did, but just, you still have the basic elements, but then how he reinterpreted some of those stories and how it all comes together, and of course, great acting. I think people really enjoyed. So it was a lot of fun to see a big movie on the big screen.
Which is incredible that you guys have such a wonderful facility to bring something like that in. But then you bring these very unique movies, and the one that you have this weekend we were just talking about, it's like a suspenseful comedy, maybe it's got some action. It sounds like it's going to be one that people aren't going to want to miss.
Absolutely. So, Wicked Little Letters is our film this weekend. It premiered at the Toronto Film Festival. And just as soon as people saw it, because of course this is an industry festival, a little bit different than Sundance, everyone's like, this is one that people are going to love because it has all those elements, as you said, of just kind of the perfect story. It's actually based on a true story, early 1900s, little tiny little hamlet in England, where suddenly all of these letters started to appear that were wicked in the British terminology, but kind of a little bit naughty, laced with profanities. And so the mystery becomes so very funny, right, of what people are reading. And of course, they're very proper. So having them read it out loud is quite enjoyable. But then there's this sort of mystery side, like, who is it? And so, of course, everyone's suspecting someone else, and it becomes all of the village women come together. They have to solve the mystery. So Olivia Colman, Jessie Buckley, just great actors, of course, great comedic actors as well. So just a fun way to celebrate the art of cinema. We go from big blockbuster film like Dune 2 to now kind of a smaller indie darling like Wicked Little Letters is always fun.
I was reading the description earlier and I was like, I would love to see this. I think that it'll bring so many giggles and it will be so entertaining. So now if people do want to come see it, how can they get their hands on tickets?
Yep. So showtimes are going to be Friday and Saturday at 7, and then again Sunday at 6. And you can get your tickets online at parkcityfilm.org, or we open our box office an hour before showtime. So you can just roll on over if you've got your friends and family in town, spontaneously want to come see a film or have a change of plans, come on over. We have a massive theater, over 400 seats, so plenty of space for folks to come in and enjoy a great film with their friends and neighbors.
This is also such a great way to enjoy what Park City has to offer now. It is the downtime a little bit, so people could go, they can have a nice dinner, and then they can come and enjoy a movie with you guys.
Yes, absolutely. And now, I mean, sadly, but I guess opportunistically for us, we're the only movie theater in Park City. So if you do want to see a film in the boundaries of Park City proper, we're your best and only bet these days. But we do want it. It is kind of a vote for cinema in general. So we do encourage folks to come on out, vote with your feet, get a seat, come see some great films, show the community that you really love seeing films on the big screen, and that helps collectively the industry bring great theaters back. We just heard that Redstone is going to be acquired by a larger theater kind of chain, which is great. So they'll revamp that. And again, more is more. We love cinema and we love people coming out. So
Well, in the different forms of art expression through the cinema, whether it's tragedy or whether it's comedy or maybe it's a mystery, it all brings something so unique and it really evokes those emotions within the people because it's such a different form of art than what we're used to seeing other places.
right, absolutely. And I think with social media, we kind of get we've been a little bit trained for these kind of short segments, TikTok and what have you, of just kind of little sound bites. And it's really hard to get into a kind of a deep conversation, to have a meaningful experience through something that's so short. It's enjoyable, but it's kind of like it's like popping a little candy in your mouth, as opposed to enjoying the gourmet meal where you've got time to kind of explore different tastes and flavors and smell the great food and have a conversation about it and kind of think about where it's from and all of that. So, what we love doing is bringing in films like Wicked Little Letters, where it's kind of fun and it's light, a little bit of historical fact in there, but certainly a little bit of fictionalization as well. But then next week, I have a great film on Thursday night. It's a free screening. We're partnering with the United Jewish Federation of Utah to show a film called A Tree of Life. And it's based on the 2018 shooting at a Pittsburgh synagogue. And it is, gone down in history, infamously as the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in America. And the film is really in a way, a portrait of the victims, but also the survivors, and then kind of lessons learned, like what can we take from something, from a tragedy such as this? And we'll be joined by one of the survivors of the shooting. But again, like this is what we do as an independent cinema, is that it's beyond the soundbite, getting beyond the headlines of what has happened and what has happened, what is happening in our communities around the country. How can we engage in those conversations? How is it relevant to our lives here in Park City? So it is that deeper dive. It's more than you're going to get from a newspaper article or a little TikTok video or a clip on Facebook. It's really, bringing the community together, have those conversations, sit down for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and really just, come together, have that conversation, see kind of a different perspective on life and how that relates to your own life and, hopefully catalyze some change.
I think that cinema is such a great way to form empaths because it gives you that in-depth look that really does spark those emotions and spark those kind of controversial thoughts within your own brain, things that you haven't thought about before, because that shooting happened quite a while ago, 2018, and how many people have kind of forgotten about it or stopped thinking about it because there's so many other things happening in the world. So to have a survivor there to spark the conversation is going to be such a unique way for people to really become more empathetic towards the situation.
Absolutely. And, it has ripple effects. I mean, my daughter's doing a lockdown drill, in her high school this week. And it's just, unfortunately, these tragedies have become more prevalent in our society. So part of the conversation is how do we keep ourselves safe? I mean, it's something you never want to prepare for. But if you lived in Tornado Alley, you better bet that you have, a shelter that you can go to. So how do we prepare ourselves to the world? But then also, how do we equally try to create a world that we do want to live in, and so where we don't have to take preparations such as this. So it's kind of, the reality of the world that we're in, but also what is our hope for the future and how do we be a part of making that change, creating that place where we all feel safe and supported and as a community can come together and not be so driven by division.
I think what you guys do as a nonprofit in our community is so wonderful because you do spark so many conversations for people to get involved in so many different lights. And now that we're on the note of you guys being a nonprofit, if people want to get involved and help support you guys, how can they do that?
So if you go to our website, parkcityfilm.org, we've got our volunteer tab. So you can certainly volunteer your time and your energy, and we Definitely appreciate that. We also have a membership tab, and we have memberships at all different levels, starting from student all the way up to our director's circle. So whatever kind of fits your budget best, we would love to have your support. And it's beyond the financial support that we get from members. What it also shows to our communities and to foundations that we apply for grants from, that we have the support of the community, that we have people behind us as a collective saying, yes, this is something that we want in our community. This is something we want to survive, and not just survive, right? Survival is not sufficient, right? To thrive in our community. And we saw that during COVID, where people, our community and grantors really coalesced around us and said, we need you to keep doing what you're doing because it's important in our community. So if that is something that you feel, and we hope that you do, volunteer, become a member, show your support, make a donation. One-time donations are also a fantastic way to show your support. But all of that collectively helps us as a community and us as a community nonprofit to continue to do what we do. It helps with our programming. 50% of our revenue stream comes from members and donations. And that's really the gold standard with Art House Cinemas, is that, yes, sure, you want revenue from tickets and concession sales, and that's important. So please come see movies and buy popcorn. But the other half, the other 50% is that, that irreplaceable community support of saying, yes, this is our vote of confidence. So all of it matters. And, no donation is too small. And certainly we will take donations of any size. So please feel free to be generous as well if you can.
Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and giving us all this great information. And of course, thank you for the imagination spark that you give our community, whether it's to evoke emotions, it's to make people more empathetic, or it's to give people a good laugh. You guys do it all there.
Well, thank you so much for having me. We appreciate being here, and see you at the movies.
We hope to see you at the movies. Make sure that you check out the Park City Film Series. You buy your tickets for this weekend show because it is going to be one that is mysterious and funny, and it's going to have all of these great elements that you're going to want to miss out. You're not going to want to miss out on. And then, of course, make sure that you check out the great event that they have coming up next Thursday. That way you can be part of the conversation. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we've got more of the show. As women, we experience some challenges in some workplaces, and especially at the C-suite corporate level. Well, I had a great chance to sit down with the author of a book named Suits and Skirts a while back, and so let's take a look to see if maybe any of this information can help you in your struggle. Are you looking for a great book to read, and have you been struggling maybe in your career choice? Well, then there is one out there on the market called Suits and Skirts, Game On, The Battle of Corporate Power. And we've got the author joining me first thing this morning, Teresa Freeburn. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's so good to be here. Thank you, Madeline.
I really love everything about your book. Unfortunately, I did not have time to go through every single chapter, but I did skim each chapter, especially because there are such good names in there, like the one that's like, "Stop, you're stepping on my skirt." And so let's talk about what inspired you to write this book.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess the other part too is it's not just about the book, but it's about who I directed it to. So, I've directed the book specifically to men. And I think that the whole reason that came out is because no one else seems to have done it, okay, for starters. But, I don't think it's any secret here. Women have been seeking power for decades, but to no avail. And my thesis is that men are actually the ones holding and keeping women back from attaining powerful C-suite and board positions. And the bottom line is what's really important here, because it's to the detriment of the corporate bottom line. And of course, the reasons vary, but the results don't. I think you just have to do the math, and women are still very highly underrepresented in leadership roles. And in the book, I'm actually speaking directly to the men that are blocking women's corporate advancement. So it's kind of this no hold barred discussion, and it will no doubt ruffle some feathers out there.
And you wrote this book, I would imagine, from some of your personal experience and what you had been through in the corporate world.
Yes, I did. I have worked for decades in the financial services industry, which is a pretty male-dominated industry to start with. So yes, I bring all of those learnings over the many decades and try and get them into some concise matter here. And I guess what fuels me on this too is, I keep hearing, you read the newspaper clippings and they talk about, all the progress that women have made in senior management and advancement and leadership. But I guess at the end of the day, if you call an increase in the Fortune 500 of 40 female CEOs over the course of 50 years a success, then I think we all need to question those math skills. You know, one female CEO in 1972 and now 44 in 2022, 50 years. I don't think that's an improvement. And I think it's ridiculous and it's pathetic and it's shameful. So, you know, I think what happens, we sort of get complacent when we hear the news. We hear about all the progress. We isolate one woman that got a promotion and we talk about that. But at the end of the day, I don't know, I feel that a goal like 50-50 would be a good way to set out a goal. And if you think of the population and the education that women now have and the history and experience that they have, it's like it's time for them to take their rightful place here. And I think the world will be very different if that can happen.
I love this so much. I'm one of 6 children and I have 4 brothers. And so even in my small household, I feel like it's a fight for power just amongst those little things. And so to take that to an industry much larger, let's take it to the big, huge corporate world, women do have to fight harder. And you know, this is something I've recently noticed. I feel like the strategy that is used is they pit women against each other.
Oh yeah, it's always easy to do that, right? It's like women are the blame for the reason why we can't be advanced corporately. You know, I think it's about, there's some sabotaging going on out there, I believe, and that, you know, corporations, which are primarily led by men, they seem to be a bit oblivious to it. You know, they're indifferent, or worse, they're overtly obstructive to matters relating to the advancement of women. So if you really think about it, though, the major roadblock is men's lack of advocacy for women. And there's all sorts of reasons for that. But I think that there's still some pretty old-fashioned views out there. I think there's a lot of leaders that still consider that sort of that old, you know, work family narrative to be a big problem still. You know, here's the reality. Women can have children and still be great at our jobs. Okay. I know it's a shocker, but, you know, all these questions about maternity leave and, you know, the motherhood penalty it is real. I mean, these things are huge roadblocks for women to get ahead. And then, of course, you start talking about things like, what about the networks? We always say, oh, well, women, you know, get involved with your networks. That's going to really help advance you in leadership. Here's the problem. Women's networks aren't working. Men's networks work really well because guess who they've got in those networks? All the men that are in those very powerful positions. We don't have as many in the women's networks. And I guarantee you, no man wants to join a women's network because there's no power there. Why would they? Where's the advancement going to come from? So
Uh-oh, I think we have maybe lost a little bit of connection, and I feel like all of these points that you are making are so fantastic, and this book is just so inspiring, not only for women to read it, but for men to read it. So let's go back to where we just left off with you talking about these groups and these networking groups.
Yes, my view there is that women's networks just aren't working. Men's networks work really well. And that's because there's a lot of powerful people in the men's network. So if you think about it, would you think a man would want to join a woman's network? Not a chance. There's no one there that they're going to gain more power from, learn from, you know, follow the footsteps of. That just doesn't work that way. So we're at a disadvantage right there. And the boys' clubs are pretty entrenched in corporations today. You know, just the idea that, you know, men don't think anything of, you know, going for a drink after work. What are women doing? We're rushing home to our families to get dinner on and get kids looked after and homework done and baths done.
Oh no, I think that we've lost your connection again, but all of this information is so powerful, and these are pieces and tidbits that people can get from your book so people can have this understanding. I feel like it's so powerful when women write books, sharing their experience, that way people can live through their eyes a little bit. And so this is a way for everyone to live through your eyes about what you went through in corporate America.
Thank you. Yes, it is. And I hope that folks get the same sort of takeaway that I did, and that is to imagine a world and what it would look like if women held a proportionate share of leadership roles, that is in the C-suite and at the board table. Think of what those agendas and those discussions and strategies and results will be. So that's what I leave your viewers with.
Well, I have another question for you. As you were writing the book, what steps did you learn along the way? Because obviously there's a lot that went into this book, a lot of personal experience, but you want more than just that. So what other resources did you use as you were writing the book?
Well, I did some primary research as well. I went out and did some online research with about 260 participants because I thought I want to have something to ground the book, make sure that it's not just Teresa's opinions here. And it was great because it really did sort of ground my thinking and my thesis here. So that was very helpful. But of course, I have so many stories, and as I start to talk to people in powerful positions, and they start to tell me their stories, again, it just validates where I was coming from to start with. I think this is something we just don't talk about too much, or not enough, as to the reasons why women are sitting at that very stagnated level. To say that 25% of board positions are now filled by women, why? Why isn't it 50? Like, I mean, I'm shocked by that. But to hear all of the reasons why, like, well, thank you, Teresa. You'd make a really good board member. However, we just don't have any openings at this time. Well, then make the damn openings. That's kind of how I feel. So I think that the more I talk to people out there, the more I want to go out and buy, sort of write that next book, because there's so much more to say. So
there's a lot to say, and there's a lot to learn from your books. Now, as it's going out into the world and people can get their hands on it, how do you think this could change experiences for women across the country?
Well, it's a good question you're asking, because although I wrote it for men, that's really who it's directed at. I've talked to some of my mentees. I have a few women that like to chat with me on a regular basis, which is fantastic. I love doing that. And they just said, no, Teresa, it's great that you've written it to direct at men, but as a young woman, I needed a playbook and I just got one. And I think that that's just a very telling situation, because I think that they honestly don't know about, what they should say when they're in positions that I've described in the book, and how to react, and sort of how to keep their cool, but yet get their point across. So yeah, I think that was just a really great observation.
I think it's so powerful what you're doing, only because you are becoming an activist for women all over, and whether it's at that C-suite and board level, or whether it's at a lower position. Like I was telling you, I worked in that marketing firm for a little while, and it was hard work. I was fighting tooth and nail to constantly have my ideas be heard, but if the same idea was proposed by someone else, then it was immediately like, that was a great idea. And I was like, this makes no sense to me. Like I said that a week ago with a full pitch deck too.
And it's funny, because I've had that exact same experience I've talked about in the book, and not once, not twice, several times, where I had such a great idea, and then I realized, why is this now such a great idea? It wasn't an idea like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, but now it is. So, and it was because a man in a more senior position in a leadership role actually made the position known to everyone, and everyone, oh, that's a great idea, but they weren't listening to me. So I feel sometimes that I'm a little, and this has gone back for decades, that I'm kind of invisible, even though you're sitting at an executive table, that your view just isn't as respected and considered as much as other men in the room. So it's real. The struggle is real.
It's so real. Now, if people would like to read your book, obviously it's directed towards men, but I do think it's a great playbook for women to get their hands on, and maybe just give them those little tidbits of advice on how to talk to someone, how to stand up for themselves, learning from your experiences and all of the other research you've done. Where can they buy your book?
Right now, it's available on Amazon, so please go ahead and order that. Just look it up under Suits and Skirts, Game On, Freeborn, and you will get that. It's on pre-order until next week, and it gets released, so it'll be in your hands very shortly. It's also available on other booksellers like Barnes & Noble as well, so help yourself, and it's in Kindle, softcover, and hardcover.
Teresa, thank you so much for giving us all this great information. Thank you for being the voice that women everywhere in corporate America need. We all really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Madeline. It's been my pleasure to chat with you. We'll talk soon.
Make sure that you go online, you pre-order her book while you can. If not, then wait until it's released, but get your hands on it just because it's a great guide and really a great lesson for everyone to learn. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we've got more of the show. to thank you so much for tuning into your Friday edition of Wasatch Weekends. There's so many great things always taking place in our community, so it's important that you tune in every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and Monday. That way you can get the information on what's happening in our community. That way you can be in the know, maybe learn something new from a great book like Suits and Skirts, and so much more. I've been your host, Maddie Evans, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.